Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer joins me today to unpack the latest in the mining industry. Hi Martin.
Hi Sashni.
Can you tell us how Sasol could be ready to produce green hydrogen in the next 24 months?
You know, Sasol has for a long time been a producer of grey hydrogen, and from that we get our fuel and we get our chemicals. It's coal-based. But what they intend doing now is moving away from that coal-based situation. And now, early on, they've had an agreement with Toyota, which I think is excellent. And the idea is that, you know, they will move buses and trucks and heavy vehicles, which normally know their routes, with green hydrogen. And the interesting thing is the speed with which they can move over to green hydrogen is very impressive. And speaking at the SA Tomorrow conference, yesterday, you could hear them say that the advancement that they could make in 12 to 24 months would be huge, and they would, repurpose their Sasolburg setup to produce green hydrogen, and that is a wonderful news. I think I'm glad that we're hearing that, because all over the world you see fast action on this green hydrogen. I mean, the Australians really are moving fast. They've done an agreement with all sorts of countries, Singapore, and now we know they've come into Africa. Okay, as a private sector company, Fortescue, they went straight to the DRC. They seem to have struck up a deal with the DRC. That Inga situation where you can get very many megawatts of clean hydropower. They seem to have struck up an arrangement there, and they will get that green hydrogen for export. But of course, when you think of Australia, with all that iron ore, if they bring that green hydrogen back and generate their own green hydrogen, they could be the biggest steel producer in the world, which would change the whole economics of their mining to actually going to value added, which they've never aspired to in the past.
Can you tell us about the White House document that is focusing on manganese as a preferred battery element contender?
Yeah, the White House were instructed to bring out a document to make sure that their manufacturing activities can be speeded up, that the economic activity can be speeded up. So they've looked across at the supply chains, and they've started to say, we've got to really know what's going on in these supply chains, because it's no good us setting up critical metals based changes and then we can't get the critical metals. And I was very happy that they put this focus on manganese, and a lot of the metals they said, this is difficult to get, we're going to have to perhaps mine it ourselves here, like lithium. But when it came to manganese, they said this must be a contender for a preferred spot in the battery element arena, which is really growing very, very fast, because it's in abundant supply. South Africa is the biggest producer, they acknowledged, and it's low cost. So they felt that a little bit more research can get this manganese as a front runner into the battery element area, which will be very good for our manganese, which has already got a massive market in steel, and that steel market is going to grow, because when you think of the wind turbines that are going to be needed and all the steel around this whole renewable setup, it could mean a very big advantage for our manganese setup. And I see our manganese as very fragmented at the moment. You haven't got one company that's directly listed on the stock exchange. You've got indirect input through African Rainbow Minerals. Sasol has already come off the stock exchange. This is not good for South Africa. The government has not encouraged listings on stock exchanges. The latest African National Congress document, the ETC document, Economic Transformation Committee document, they're saying get these companies onto the exchange, because we are really looking in the dark here at manganese at the moment. All we've got to go by is African Rainbow Minerals and South 32, which is listed in Australia mainly, and secondary here. We need a primary listing here in manganese, and I'm hoping that industry will also consolidate itself a bit. There seems to be a strategy by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy to create this fragmentation. In some respects, I think it's not good, and we need to have the government saying, when these people get their mining licenses, they must encourage them to list, because otherwise you don't know what's going on in that industry.
Lastly, Martin, the International Council on Mining and Metals says over 300 vehicle fleets have been assessed for cleaner, safer mine mobility in 5 regions.
Yeah, now it's great that the International Council on Mining and Metals is taking this initiative, but you can see it's already 2.5 years old. It's going into, you can say it'll be 3 years before anything really material will happen. Now that is unusual for mining. Normally they get things going fast. They're not doing it in this instance, but they're trying to do it in a very measured way. So this was the biggest thing really that you can say was action, where they went on to more than 300 mining sites and they assessed more than 300 mining fleets to see whether these could be brought into the safety paradigm and into the paradigm that is cleaner, because mines are making a lot of money at the moment. I think the time is now for them to really have serious conversations with the OEMs and see what you can do quickly, because you can see the ambitions. Some of them are lengthy. The one in the open cast, we know that there are ways of being zero emission in the next 6 months. We know that. We have a situation in South Africa where Anglo is moving into that spot. It will have genuine zero emission in an open cast situation before the end of the year. So I think that mining needs to look at itself, because I see they're concentrating on the underground and saying, well, we're doing well there. But in the open cast, communities suffer by the pollution, so they should be conscious of that. They're putting it into the atmosphere, and I think they don't really need to. Underground, they realize that they're largely diesel driven, and the diesel particulate matter they are dealing with to some extent. And a lot of mines are putting in this DPM to try and stop the emissions, because the World Health Organization has declared the diesel fumes as cancer causing. Now against that background, I think they need to speed things up, because also in that area we know there's technology that could change the whole thing. But the one that I think will come in quickly is making sure that your vehicles avoid collisions. The vehicle avoidance collision situation, we know we've had this in South Africa for a long time. They should have it quite quickly as well, that they say by 2025. So, doing a lot of good intention things, but it's probably very difficult dealing with about a third of the mining industry in the world. A lot of South African companies in there, and like 650 assets in 50 countries. Not easy. You're dealing with 19 original equipment manufacturers, thinking differently, not wanting to disclose their thoughts totally. So it is a difficult thing. But I do believe there are ways of doing this much faster, and I'm sure they'll realize that soon.
Thanks for speaking with us, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Sashni.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on the local and global mining industries. And don't forget to listen to the audio version of our Mining Weekly daily email newsletter.